Hi everybody, I'm gonna show you some piping tips today. Might wait in for just a little bit, just a bit longer to see if anyone else would like to join us. I was asked a little while ago, how do I pipe a rosette, and that's using chocolate. I've actually used chocolate ganache on this cupcake. You can do it with buttercream or you can do it with chocolate. It's all about getting the right consistency, and once you get the right consistency, it's really quite easy to do your piping. So here is some ganache I had left over from one of my cake projects, and sometimes you see it start to separate, and really all you need to do is whip it back up and it will come back together again. And really what you want to aim for is a kind of like a Nutella sort of consistency. You'll find like something that's spreadable, not too soft that it won't hold its shape. So you do want it to be quite firm, but then again not too firm that you can't actually pipe with it. Okay, so this has been warmed up, and by warmed up, I haven't put it in the microwave or anything like that. I've actually just taken it out the fridge and I've set it in my dehydrator. You can set it in your oven at the lowest temperature setting possible as well, and that will warm up your chocolate really quite quickly. I'm just massaging it so that I can see it coming together, and it's not like it's been separated, because the oils and the chocolate can can separate, and really it's because it's been warmed up. I mean, if it's too hot, that's what will happen. So that's my chocolate, and it's really quite soft, you can see here. And what I really want is for this to be a little bit firmer before I actually do any piping. And I do apologize if my internet isn't up to speed and we get poor network connection happening. I endeavor to adjust, to change that. I just got to work out how to use the router. Anyway, so that's my chocolate that I've conditioned, and I will let that sit for a while because I do want that to firm up that little bit more. But I can go ahead and show you how I do things, how I actually do things with buttercream. And buttercream for me is a mix of butter and vegetable shortening, and your pure icing sugar. I use pure icing sugar mainly because I have a use for pure icing sugar in other things. So I don't stock the soft icing sugar that comes in the pink bag. If you're in Australia, it comes in a pink bag, the CRSR ones. I actually go for the one that's packed in the purple bag, and it may feel a lot firmer only because the difference between the two is one has corn flour and the other doesn't, and so the corn flour makes it smoother. So by using buttercream, I'll go ahead and show you how I do pipe some flowers or some rosettes. What I do is I actually do a double bag system, or I create a vessel to which my piping tip would sit in. I was asked, how do I create this rosette? And really that was actually done with a 1B. And be mindful, there are different brands out there in piping tips. You have your Loyal, you have your Wilton. I'm using Gem, Jem. I find their their tips to be, I don't know, something about their tips. It's prettier, or it's cleaner in how you pipe, and the lines are a little bit more defined. I don't know what it is about that particular brand. It could just be my imagination as well, but 1B will give me this beautiful big rosette. You'll notice that it's really just, you know, it's just a flower tip, and if it wasn't for my 1B, I would use my 1D, and it's similar, okay, just smaller. And I find that just by using these will give me that rosette. And I'll pipe them both to show you, but this is how I do it. I actually use a piping bag as a vessel, okay, and I don't use cowboys and things like that because I don't think it's necessary. I think it's just extra, you know, cost, and also extra washing up to do. So I just go ahead and measure, you know, whereabouts my tip is going to come through and sit in. Now you got to be mindful when you're putting this through that you don't want any of your bag to obstruct any bit of your tip, okay? So you want it to sit quite, you don't want it sitting too far down because it can pop off, but you don't want it sitting too high up that it'll end up, you know, blocking your piping tip, okay? So that's my vessel, and I do this simply because I actually fill up bags of buttercream in colors separately, right? And each time I want to go and change my colors around, it's just a matter of pulling one bag out and putting the next bag in using the same tip. If I'm doing many, you know, multiple, you know, of the same sort of piping, that saves me from having to, you know, wash a tip each time, or having to buy, you know, 5 of the same kind of tips because I've got 5 different colors. So this solved that issue by me creating a vessel. I pipe individual colors, and then I just swap it around. So that's my 1B. I will create my a vessel for my 2D as well. You notice 2D being smaller than my 1B, obviously I'm gonna need a smaller hole at the end. Okay, and because again the same principle applies, you want it to sit, you know, away from the ends of the tip, but you don't want it too far down that it'll just pop off once you start pressing down. So there's my 2. Another of my favorite that I have been using is a 4B or a 6B. I don't have my 4B with me today, but a 4B or 6B, and this is Loyal. The other 2 were JEMs. This creates a really pretty what is it, like a swirl, a beautiful top. I'll show you because I find it really pretty, and it just adds a little bit of texture to the way it looks. It's opened and it's got many teeth, and you'll get them in different things. So like you can have the smaller, this is a 32, okay, and obviously they have different numbers will create, you know, different looks. But here's my 6B and this is my 32, and look, they're almost the same. They'll do the same thing. It's just that, you know, it's just a matter of volume. You know, one will actually pipe more than the other, obviously. So it depends on how much frosting you want to, you know, include onto your cupcakes. You might decide that, you know, I don't actually want, you know, too much frosting on I don't want too much frosting in, you know, on my cupcakes, so I'll use a smaller tip to create that look, you know, to create the same look, I mean. So I'll go ahead and also that's many, but it's similar. It's kind of like that, but just smaller. Okay, so that's my vessels. Okay, this means that I'm ready to pipe away, you know, whatever it is that I would like to pipe onto my cupcakes, and with several different colors. Okay, so you got to be mindful when you are putting the bag within the bag. When you sit it through the bag, you don't want the plastic on the inside bag to obstruct any of this part of your piping tip. So you got to be mindful when you're cutting off your piping, the ends of your piping bag with the buttercream or your ganache. You got to make sure that that is you know, it won't sink all the way in, so that it'll start to obstruct the sides of that, because when that happens, it just ruins the look that you're aiming for. So here I am using a blue to show you. I will actually, knowing my tip is so big, I don't want this to sink any too far down, so I'll actually take off quite a bit, and you see it's actually quite a big diameter. Okay, because when I sit this in to the bag now, it's actually not going to go down further than it has to, which means that when I go and squeeze this out, you see that there is actually no sign of the bag, you know, within the piping tip, that's going to obstruct the edges of this piping tip. Okay, so always try to squeeze your bags down, right, and then twist it so that it's in hand. And look how beautiful that's come out. And you want the buttercream to come right through on all those points, okay, because that's what creates your beautiful lines. Okay, this is again a 1B. This is a 1B, and the way I do my rosettes, I start in the middle and I'm pressing, I'm squeezing, and then I'm twirling, and then I'm finishing up at that point and pulling away, and I've got myself my rosette. Okay, you'll notice that I've got jagged edges, and that is due to my buttercream being whipped too much. When you whip your buttercream too much if you whip your buttercream too much, then what happens is you get bubbles, okay? And okay, so what you want to try and aim to do is not stir or not whip up your buttercream too much. This is a leaf tip, okay? It's called a number 352. There are so many different types of leaf tip, like, you know, small ones, big ones, you know, fine ones, you know, thick ones, but they all basically do the same. You'll notice that it's, you know, it's a square, it's like that in a V. But if you were to pipe it, let's see if I have a spare piece of paper to show you. If you were to pipe it this way, you see it coming out like that, and it doesn't do anything, does it? Right? So you really want to point your piping tip downward, okay? So the sharp ends, so it's kind of vertical, so it's not horizontal, it's vertical, and then that's how you are able to get your leaves. So you squeeze and then you pull away. You squeeze and then you pull away, okay? So I would finish off the ends of that cupcake by giving it some leaves. And really it's up to you how dense you want to create this. But See how all I have to do is that, and these will make really beautiful wreaths. So if you were to make wreath cupcakes for Christmas, for example, you know, you'd be like piping away, pulling, squeeze, pull, squeeze, pull, and always at a vertical, so that always is pointing like that. Okay, doing it like this gives you no effect. There's no leaves. You got to do it the other way. Okay. Right. When you take off the bag, sorry, I did it outside of. When I take my bag out of my vessel, you see there's excess buttercream through there. I don't know if whether you can see that, but what you have to do, unfortunately, is to try and squeeze the next color right through, so that you can push out all that excess buttercream, so that you can actually get the next color through. Sometimes it could be handy if you were doing multiple colors and you wanted to, you know, just you know, you didn't mind that whole blending issue. But you know, often I would take the next bag and I'll actually pipe and till the excess has come through and the color's clean again. And you always wipe the ends of your tips. Okay, when you wipe the ends of the tips, you will carry less colors through with you. So here is, they call this a number 30. It's a lot smaller, so you notice that I'll cut a smaller diameter. Okay, because that's probably all you're gonna need for it to be able to sit comfortably through and not come out the other end. So okay, you just want to make sure that no piping bag is coming through the edges of that, so that when you actually do squeeze, I don't know if that's visible, but notice how that is a clean, like that hasn't been blocked by the piping bag. Okay, okay, same deal. Start in the middle. When you do this, okay, you can do, because there's more lines, more so than the 1B, and it will be more so than your 1D as well. You'll get more lines on your rosettes, which gives it a different look. Okay, with piping, I find it's very forgiving. There's no real right way or wrong way. What I go through is, you know, where it's not so pretty, I'll just go ahead and hide what's not so pretty about that spot. Okay, by just adding, you know, bits of green, or you know, even some sprinkles will do the trick. But just by adding, see, it already looks a bit prettier, you know, in all the bits, and it looks like, you know, you've got a little bouquet happening. You can go ahead and continue to add, you know, greens, or you can just go ahead and use sprinkles, you know, if you wanted to. You know, silver bowls are always handy to make things look a little bit jazzy. You know, adding some sprinkles in its place will just hide the not so pretty that you want to hide. That there is not very pretty. Might get the tweezers. It might not be so clear in the video, but you know, when you're working directly in front of you and you notice the difference. And whilst you might be able to get a bag of sprinkles, they're not always very even either, so you kind of have to pick the pretty one out of the lot to put in place. And we all know the whole ratio, yeah? 3, 5s, 9s. Visually, uneven numbers are a lot more appealing. So, you know, do 5, do 9, do, you know, 7, sorry, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 9s, 11s. Somehow your eyes are trained so that it's such that if it's even, you'll find something wrong with it. If it's uneven, your eyes kind of makes it a little bit more forgiving to view, and so they're a lot prettier to look at. Okay, let's show you what a 2D is going to look like. 2D is probably one of my favorite tips, most favorite tips to play with. It is so I'm just checking the chocolate to see if it's a good. I use 2D a lot, and again, I'll tell you how when you cut off the ends of your piping bags, that you don't cut off too little, because you want to make sure that when this goes in and it stops wherever it's going to stop, it doesn't interfere with the edge of your piping tip. Okay, that's probably quite paramount, quite important when it comes to this technique or this trick or this tip I have to share with you. Okay, and that's me making sure that sits flush, and when I push it out, you see again nothing is interrupting that flow, okay, to create those beautiful lines. Okay, so rosettes, you start in the middle and you squeeze and you turn and you fill up the corners and you come to the end and you pull away. Okay, you can practice and practice and practice. You don't need to use cupcakes to do that with. You can do it on a paper towel, and it's just practice. And once you actually done a few of this, you start seeing how beautiful that comes together. Okay, and you don't always have to finish off with a leaf or anything like that. You could just get a fondant flower if you wanted to. Okay, I'm gonna use some hearts to show you. You can do a 3-petal flower with some heart, and these are just sprinkles. To make things easy and quick. There you are. or if you'd like to see it again. Here is my leaf. Okay. I don't know if there is much more to share. Oh, sorry. This one. This is what I mean by how I think it's so beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna do this with my yellow. And you see me pushing that back only because I want this to be quite far down, so that when I actually cut it off, it's not going to sit too far in that it's going to affect that. Okay. And again, you test by making sure that when you push that through, it doesn't actually cover any of these points, because when you go ahead and pipe this, okay, this is simply me going down and then I just lift up. Look how pretty that is. Okay, and you can do little ones. Okay, or you can just do, you can do swirls as well, but this is just to show you how you can get those beautiful lines. And I really quite adore this because it makes it really easy to pipe that bit of frosting on your cupcakes without it being too much frosting. You can do the same swirls, gives it a different look. Probably not as pretty. You probably want to do the other way actually, because if you start from, I'm going to take off this excess, I'm going to go outside in, and that will give it a gives it that kind of a look. Okay, like an ice cream look. You can do your soft serve look. With either a 2D or a 1B. So that's on the outside in to give me that look. That's a 2D. Okay. And this is what a 1B looks like, doing the same thing. But to me, see, that's the 1B, that's the 2D. Let's see how well is this chocolate. I won't be able to show you, I think, ganache today, only because I don't think the ganache has actually come together really well. But you do want this to be soft enough, but not, to pipe, but yet firm enough that it will hold its shape. So it's I don't know if this is something I'll be able to share properly over video rather than in person, so it could, you know, it may not work so well, but let's give it a go anyway. This is me gonna show you in a 2D. So we're gonna go ahead and clean off the tips, and you notice that there's a fair bit of buttercream in this, but that's okay, because what we'll do is we'll cut the end of this. Let's try and move that out of the way so I have a bit of room. Okay. And I'd be squeezing out all the excess, okay? And really what I want to do is I want to get to a condition where I've taken out all the red, and that's not going to affect the next color or whatever it is I'm intending to pipe. Okay. So here's my 2D chocolate ganache center. Okay, and ideally that will then be able to be to sit in in your fridge to firm up. Or, you know, if your ganache is the right consistency, it won't need that. All you have to do is make sure that it has somewhere to sit and firm up, and really at room temperature. Like that was left at room temperature, and now that's actually firm already. Your chocolate will firm up, you know, and it will be that ganache consistency that you find in your, when you actually put your cakes together. And that's pretty much it. I will post after this on the events the recipes that I use for my buttercream, the ratios, and the ganache as well. And I'll share with you the colors that I use or the brands that I use. But I thank you so much for tuning in. It's a short one because I'm just sharing with you the tips that I do use. I don't really do a lot of piping. I don't do flowers and things like that. Well, not often anyway. But someone asked me, you know, how to create the buttercream swirls or the rosettes, and it really is just a matter of getting the right tips and having a bit of practice. And once you get the right flow and the right turn of your wrist, you know, to get it around, you get beautiful rosettes. Well, I hope that has helped some, and I hope you've enjoyed, you know, what I've shared with you today. My next video will be on figurines again. I think that's my strong suit, so that's what I'll be doing, and I hope you tune in then. Thank you. Bye.